Welcome to episode 309 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon. If you're a wheat producer in the southern Great Plains this time of year, you're either cutting wheat, waiting for the rain to let up so you can do so, waiting for it to reach maturity, or filling out insurance claims. In this episode, we're talking with two wheat producers who represent Oklahoma both nationally and globally. We start off this episode with our conversation with Keeff Felty about his role on the National Association of Wheat Growers, or commonly known as NAWG. In the time since we recorded with Keeff back in January at the KNID AgriFest in Enid, he has officially become the president of NAWG. Keeff talks with us about what it's like raising wheat and cotton in southwest Oklahoma while representing wheat growers in national policy discussions. Then, after a short break, we talk with RJ Parrish, who represents North Central wheat producers with the Oklahoma Wheat Commission, about what the commission does for wheat growers in our great state, and we also learn about his operation in northern Oklahoma. These interviews were recorded back in January at the KNID AgriFest in Enid, where we set up across from the Cinnamon Roll Utopia, commonly known as the Oklahoma Wheat Commission's booth. Just as a reminder, you will be able to find information about what we talked about in this episode and past episodes on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
I think Dave's asking if you put a rubber ducky on the dam, how long until it hits your place?
Dr. Brian Arnell. And next to him is our guest host for this episode. He is the Extension Specialist for Fire Ecology with Oklahoma State.
Something that stands out that you've been able to work with and say, man, I'm glad that got through there, or I'm glad we got it stopped.
The one, the only, John Weir. And next to him on the panel is Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
Rained a lot in that Altus area, so, that water district's really picking up. But it's not really Altus that you need it from, right? It's north.
Dr. Josh Lofton. Let's kick off our conversation with the current National Association of Wheat Growers president and Jackson County producer, Keeff Felty, which was recorded on January 12th, 2024. Then, hermetically sealed and stored in our archive with strict instructions not to open until harvest time on a hard drive somewhere in the back of the office. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And again, we're at the KNID AgriFest, and the cool thing about it is we're with the Oklahoma Wheat Commission and the Oklahoma Wheat Growers Association booths, and they were so kind to let us set up and interview some growers from around the state. And Brian, we have one of the most prominent growers in Jackson County.
No, you just screwed that one up.
No, not Jackson County. What county?
Yeah, it's Jackson.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I was like, this guy, he's
trying to freak you out, Dave.
People in Jackson County turn to him for wheat growing advice. No, maybe, yeah. Okay, well, I'll stop trying to build him up, and Brian, you just do the introduction then.
Okay. Glad to have Keeff Felty on, who does farm in Jackson County.
Yes.
Who is, extremely, we've worked together for a long time, Keeff, just going back, just agronomy and all that stuff. And so he is a lot of times on the leading edge of some practice adoptions and things along those lines. I've worked tirelessly and forever with OSU Extension.
Yeah.
Gary Strickland and him, it was hard to separate at times. If I were to go down to see Gary, Keeff would be there. Or if I had to go see Gary, it's because we needed to go see Keeff.
Right.
I mean, it was one of those two. But along with being a wheat farmer and very active career with the Wheat Commission, the wheat growers, he's now vice president of the National Association of Wheat Growers. And so wanted to introduce Keeff and have him tell us a little bit about what that means, what it means, what your roles are in there, and what does it mean for Oklahoma to have somebody in that position. So, Keeff, welcome to the Red Dirt Podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. The National Association of Wheat Growers we deal with legislative and the regulatory aspects of agriculture, Farm Bill, EPA, anything that is touched legislatively or regulatorily, we're involved in both being proponents and fighting the things that are detrimental.
So as VP of NAWG, what are your responsibilities?
In the NAWG organization, you start out as secretary and treasurer, and you go through the process in each of the offices, and so it's all preparatory for being the president. And so, as a treasurer, you really have a lot that you're involved with as far as the budget and the numbers and that type of stuff. So it's probably your more specific role. And as vice president, you take on whatever tasks come along. Whether it's a fly-in to meet with Congress about pending legislation, or going to various states and helping them with some of their projects and things that they have going on in various times of the year.
I guess one last one really comes to NAWG. Oklahoma's been fairly well represented within NAWG over the years, correct? Or
yes.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit just briefly about the history of Oklahoma being within that national organization?
We have had two previous national presidents. The most recent was Jimmy. Well, actually, we've had four.
Okay.
We've had four, yes. Jim Billington, Terry Dietrich, Jimmy Music, and I will be next month. Yeah, Jimmy was our most recent out from the Sentinel area. He's still very active. In fact, he's going to be joining us week after next in Washington for our winter meeting.
Fantastic. So now let's just move to more farming stuff. Tell us a little bit about the operation in Jackson County. How's it looking right now? What's your rotation? We haven't had a whole lot out of the Southwest on the podcast before, so you're going to be a little unique in your system and your environment as that.
Okay. Well, cotton and wheat are pretty much our rotations, and on the irrigated, it's cotton. Cotton.
Throw wheat down and kill wheat.
Unless it fails. But,
and then it's just cotton after failed cotton.
Right. It's hard to do a lot of double cropping in the rainfall amounts that we get, and we've been dry the last 2 years.
Not that you've been around for a while, but you've been farming for a bit. I'm trying to be politically correct, Dave. You're laughing at me.
Oh, no, yeah.
You've been farming for at least a year or two. So in Jackson County, in your area, what does production look like, the change over the years? Does farming today look like it was when you were first starting out or as a kid?
Oh, no, absolutely not. It's all progressed. We're very, I'm going to say, technologically forward in my area. If it looks like it has potential, we're going to be adopters, and we're going to push it pretty hard in all regards. And so, yeah, we've seen a lot of improvement, and wasn't that long ago that 4-row was big. I actually started with 6, and now we're 12, 24. We have to have the technology to apply the speed, because it's a whole lot easier when Grandpa did it, or great-grandfather with a team, and he saw every inch, and we're looking at it at 120 feet at 18 miles an hour.
What's the biggest thing you think has changed over, let's just say, the last 10, 20 years?
Wow, there's been a lot of stuff happened in the last 20 years for sure. Probably the thing that really makes everything work is the precision side. Being able to actually micromanage. I mean, we've always known the potential, but we didn't have the ability, and so that's really, without getting too specific, being able to pinpoint and go out and do something where you want to do it instead of generally where you want to do it.
Whenever you go, just to kind of switch gears here, but whenever you go to Washington, D.C., and you're talking, I assume you meet with Congress members and legislators up there. Do you do much education for the folks that are not familiar with issues that may be in a farm bill that they're going to be voting for it at some point?
Oh yes, absolutely. That's a lot of what we do.
Yeah.
I really have it easy because I'm actually in Congressman Lucas's district.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't have to do a sell there.
Right.
And that's one of the things as national officer, they break us up, and we may go to Ohio,
Right.
or California. They
Yep.
have 33 or 35
Wow.
representatives, I believe, and California is a member state.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to get to go to some of the other states and not necessarily a friendly office.
That's true. Yeah.
And so that is one of the interesting things. And yes, we do a lot of education. That's really what our purpose is.
Oh, okay.
Because generally, especially outside of agriculture, which is a small percentage now,
Right.
there's not a lot of real knowledge base.
Yeah.
There are those that are interested in it, and they do their homework.
Right.
And the reality, especially on the national level there in Washington, there is such a volume of stuff going on there that's the necessity for us to be there.
Yeah.
in all regards for agriculture. And it may not necessarily just be a wheat issue.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things overlap, and so we're glad to do our part wherever we can.
What kind of reactions are you getting from some of the there can be a large turnover in Congress members. What kind of reactions are you getting from those districts, say in California, that don't necessarily deal with agriculture every day? Whenever you talk to a member of Congress, are they receptive? Do they take in what you're actually saying, or do they just kind of say, "Oh, that's nice. Thanks for stopping by"?
Let me answer. No comment.
Right.
This is where you bleep it out, or we go beep.
His face said it. Yeah, but
You're always going to get a broad spectrum.
right.
And over time, you kind of learn how to gauge what your outcome will or won't be.
Yeah.
And there's some that you go in and you feel like you have made some progress, and it's worth a second circle back.
Yeah.
And then there are those that, pretty much that you made the contact, you did your job,
Yeah.
you were here,
Right.
they were exposed.
Yep.
Now we'll see where it goes.
Right. Yeah. Because when it comes down to it, I mean, the bills come out of committee and then they're voted on by the full Congress. So I mean, see, I did pay attention in 8th grade. I remember that. So it's good to make those contacts with them and actually help educate them.
I thought you were just referring back to that cartoon. What
Yeah.
is it?
I'm
Bill
just
on
the
a Hill.
I'm a Bill.
Yeah.
I'm a
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
At least you didn't start singing it.
Yes, he did. That comes later.
Keith, we've, going back to Oklahoma and wheat production, we've had a lot of cotton sweep through traditional wheat production regions up in North Central. I mean, you being kind of one of the pillars of the state, being on the board and stuff like that, what kind of conversations have you had with traditional wheat growers, maybe trying to integrate cotton, or maybe that you haven't? What is that big key to integrating cotton into a wheat rotation or wheat into a cotton rotation? What's that one thing that can really make it work?
Well, it all boils down to location, and we go a lot of places, and that's one of the things about wheat. It's grown nearly nationwide, 6 classes, and we represent all of them, and it's very diverse from here to there, and we have problems they don't have, and vice versa. We, especially west of 35, don't have a lot of choices because of the weather.
Yeah.
It all boils down to weather, and so we're not going to grow corn or soybeans or some of that like they can in the Miami area and large areas of the country. So that's why irrigated, we're cotton on cotton. Conservation practices, they work better in heavier rainfall areas.
Yeah.
That's just, we're learning that what works best for where we are. But to get to your question, there's certain areas, wheat is your choice, topography or whatever the reason. And, as far as integrating cotton one time was grown in every county back before boll weevil took it out.
Right.
I've been told that's really the driving force behind McAllister being what it is today.
Huh.
It's a lot of infrastructure. You can poke anything but cotton through a combine. And you can do nothing else with a combine. And you got to have a gin. And a dryland fed gin is expensive, risky proposition. That's just the reality of it. The markets are really a lot of the driving force on a lot of that as well. So, where there's more value in cotton generally, but more risk. Gets back to the economics, and they like to give me a hard time because I'm an econ major.
You are.
So looking at new genetics, like you said, a lot of things have come to wheat production in the last 10 years, and one of those is just a lot of new traits, a lot of new systems, and what have you. So looking at the pipeline, what in southwest Oklahoma, what are you most looking forward to that's either just been released or maybe in that pipeline for wheat genetics that's going to make things easier on y'all?
There are a lot of really interesting things coming along, and in our area, we've got to have something that is going to handle adversity and have consistency. It's got to come up. It's got to survive it. And wheat's tough. It's a tough bird. If it comes up, barring some pretty much catastrophic events, it's going to make something. So it can be hailed out, and the suckers will still make you 30 bushels if the conditions are right.
Right.
So that's really, I'm going to, it's resilient by nature. There's so many things that are coming along that are potentials, but they've got to have consistency and durability.
So with your environment, climate, because your soils aren't uniform, your climate's not uniform, nothing's uniform.
Perfect growing conditions.
Exactly right. How many varieties do you run in a year? Are you one where you have one or two that you pick, or do you really diversify to try to either capture or avoid whatever might happen?
I'm all about simple.
Okay.
No more than 3.
So Jagger.
Oh yeah,
and
I love
2174.
no, just Jagger. I love Jagger.
Yeah.
Jagger's
never disappeared. I guarantee you there's fields of Jagger.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and it's got none of its package anymore. No. It's not resistant to anything, but it'll yield, and it'll come up, and it'll handle adversity.
So for anybody under the age of 35 or 40, Jagger was around forever and has never left.
Yeah, it's been a mainstay, but this year I have Green Hammer and Smith's Gold.
Green Hammer, Smith's Gold. So
and I bought some Showdown.
Okay, so that bringing that one in, what does it take, since you're simple and you only want 3? What's it take to kick out a variety to bring in a new variety? And do you do it whole scale, or do you drop it on a field first and then see?
I'll drop it on the field first. I've got a quarter of Showdown. I bought certified 160 bushels. You make it prove itself before you. So we'll see how it does. I've discussed it with some of my neighbors, and they were high on it up until last year, but I still went ahead and gave it a try.
I want to switch a little bit back to the cotton. I know this is wheat, but I've got a curiosity on the cotton side. Herbicide traits. When you're within a community, how did that look when we start bringing in different herbicide resistance for your community of farmers? Or should we just bleep that and not even go down that road?
It made it more challenging.
Great answer.
Yeah.
And scene.
And scene. Cut. Let's change. Remove that from the script and go on.
Keefe, you were in the district, the water district down there. Is that correct? So, I mean, I said R. Well, I thought because the last couple of years, he's not been in the district.
Oh, it's still there.
So, like, can you, for anybody that's unfamiliar, I mean, you guys have had a lot of adversity in the last couple of years just because not being able to utilize it. So, I mean, could you explain a little bit about the district and as brief as you can, and then, the value of that to your part of the world?
Sure. It's Lugert-Altus Irrigation District. It's on North Fork of the Red River. It is actually, the town of Lugert was moved to what is now Blair because it was underwater after they finished it. Truman signed the legislation. They started delivering water to the north part north of Altus, mid-50s, and the next year in the southern part of the county, it approximately 44,000 acres at this time, and is a Bureau Reclamation project. And so interesting is it's we paid for it. We were, I believe, the only one to pay for it, and we were on time. So that's kind of a big deal. A lot of these projects just get absorbed. So we're fortunate, and but it is on the North Fork, so we're rain fed.
Yeah.
And so the last couple of years we just haven't had anything in there. So this is the year.
Well, and it's interesting because it's and it's one of those things that the more you know, the more you kind of follow the trail. But we were talking to folks out of Oklahoma City, and they were talking about the district and it's rained a lot in that Altus area, so that water district's really picking up. But it's not really Altus that you need it from, right? It's north.
Right. The lake is actually west of Granite. No, east of Granite. East of Granite. Sorry, it's east of Granite. And 60% of the watershed is in the Texas Panhandle, north of I-40.
Yeah.
If it rains on the south side of Shamrock, it doesn't go in the lake. It goes below the dam. So it needs to rain in north of Shamrock and up in that area, which is 60%, and it is a very narrow. Elk City's not in it. So between Elk City and Shamrock in Oklahoma.
And there's been a lot of challenges out from western Texas absorbing some of that water, taking it out of the watershed before it even kind of gets down y'all's way in recent years, hasn't it?
Well, I don't know so much West Texas. It is in Texas. That's one of the things that we deal with in the district is that the bulk of the watershed is out of our control, even beyond the weather.
So even the Panhandle, traditional irrigated corn or cotton have started integrating a lot of irrigated wheat. But you said if there's irrigated ground, it's going to cotton. Is that solely an economic decision and really just because you have the infrastructure down there to support it? Or
yes, and of the acres that are in the district with the infrastructure and the ability of the cotton crop that we can raise, it's going to be cotton. That, and with the amount of water that lake is only on in the summer months. So yes, I could plant wheat on an irrigated acre, but I cannot order enough water to get it turned on.
Some of the unique natures of the Lugert district is this is a surface lake pulling a canal, a dirt canal, down to release, and you have water release going through the district at different points. So it's not like you get to have water every single day.
Right.
It's that you get a release and allotment on a day, and that might be at noon or it might be at 1 in the morning,
right.
Correct?
Right.
Then you got to flip pipe.
And, there are internal rules, and you have to have 100, it's delivered by second foot. It's paid for by acre foot. But in the second foot, it's 460 gallons a minute, roughly.
Wow.
So you have to have 150 second feet ordered before they turn it on. They get 150 second feet at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. They go to the dam, and it's coming. 149, you're waiting.
So how's that order? I mean,
so
like you as a farmer call in, say, I need this now?
Right.
And they just add it up.
So I could plant wheat on a quarter, and usually on a quarter you'd probably order 4 or 5 second feet, depending on how it laid and whatnot, which is quite a bit of water. But I could order it in February, and if they get enough orders,
it'll get there in June whenever they open it up.
When they get enough orders, right. And, so some of it's going into subsurface drip, and that requires just under 2 second feet to do a quarter for maximum efficiency.
So the question on that is, where you farm, how far are you from the dam, and how long does it? I mean, you put in an order, hey, I need this amount of water. Well, okay, we'll start it your way, and it will show up, at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I think Dave's asking if you put a rubber ducky on the dam, how long until it hits your place?
Right. Okay. But I'm being like, no, if you put in the order, I mean, I guess it is. The water's not constantly running But I guess.
Well, okay.
But go ahead. I'll let you answer
Okay. You got to remember, this was designed and built in the 50s with slide rules.
Yeah.
And it works very, very well.
Yes.
They know exactly if they put this much water in, it's going to go this far in this amount of time.
Yeah.
And when we can deliver roughly 750 second feet out of the dam. So when we get 750 second feet ordered, then you get on a list.
Ah, okay.
So the system's totally full. Well, if I'm going to be done at noon on Wednesday, I got to tell them by 5 o'clock on Tuesday.
Right.
And then I got to make it happen.
Yeah.
So then it's going to go to the neighbor. Well, if he's quarter mile down, well, he'll shut me off and turn him on in 15 minutes.
Right. Okay.
Now, if it's going to be coming from the dam, depends on where you are in the system. A lot of it will get there like around Altus, which is 15 miles roughly. It'll get there by daylight. They go to the dam at 5 and 8. So if they turn it on at 5 p.m. and send it down there, I'm setting tubes on north side of Altus at 6.
That's amazing.
The next morning. Now you go further down, and it depends on sometimes it depends on the volume of water.
Right.
Because you get off southeast of town 15 miles, and which when we're starting, well, you've got a lot more that they have to put in for loss for the dirt and whatnot. So if they don't have but a little bit coming, it may be 3 days to get it down there.
Oh, wow.
But when it's all full and going, it'll be there by noon the next day.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So you got to time all this out.
Yeah. Wow.
That's pretty incredible.
And I'm only going to imagine the ability to flip tubes is you don't have a lot of people looking for that job to flip tubes 24 hours a day. When we need flipping tubes, there's an art form to that too. But
yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
I assume.
It's really not that hard to learn, but it's kind of like same principle as siphoning gas.
That's a lost art anymore.
It's a lost art.
You can Google that.
I remember watching some grad students do that at the Altus Research Station, and I was like, "Wow!" I mean, they just started moving down the row, and it moved the water right down the rows there. But so now back to the wheat side of it. Let's talk about the Oklahoma Wheat Growers Association. What is the major difference between that and the Oklahoma Wheat Commission? Because those are the two entities that we hear a lot about.
Right. As I said earlier, the growers are the members of NAWG.
Okay.
So we're the legislative side.
Right.
We do the lobbying and the regulatory. The commission is the research, education, marketing, development.
Okay.
They collect the checkoff.
Yeah.
They cannot do what we do because of the checkoff dollars, and it's a conflict of interest.
And the great thing about it is any wheat grower, I guess, in Oklahoma can be a member of that of the Oklahoma Wheat Growers Association.
Yes, we are a dues member organization.
Okay.
And currently our dues are $50.
Oh, okay.
And that's for a year, and that also makes you a member of the National Association because we are a member of the National Association as well, which is a dues organization as well. And the commission, their sister organization is U.S. Wheat Associates.
Right.
And so we work together. And then in addition to that, we have the Wheat Foundation, National Wheat Foundation, which is a part of NAWG.
I've always wondered what the exact line was between the Oklahoma Wheat Commission and the Oklahoma Wheat Growers Association. So I know both have wheat interest in mind. I've always wondered what that fine line is.
Glad you figured that out.
And
flow charts help.
The National Wheat Foundation is its own separate entity,
right? But
it and NAWG are closely related.
Keith, I want to go back to you said you worked a lot with the legislature, not only D.C., probably state legislature as well. What is, I guess thinking back, what is a piece of legislation that you worked on in the past that gave you the most pleasure that you got it either passed or got it defeated with something that had come up? Is there something that stands out that you've been able to work with and say, man, I'm glad that got through there, or I'm glad we got it stopped?
Last year we were able to on the grower side, we were able to get legislation through the state legislature that allowed the commission to have the complete authority over the checkoff. As it had been, if they wanted to make any changes, it had to be through the legislative process. We were successful in having a bill run through the state legislature that allows the commission to set the rate on its own. So that's one that most recently on state level that we've done, and
that's pretty good to allow legislature to give up control of something. Yeah. They don't like to do that very often.
So yeah, well, that one was pretty nice, and it worked out well, and we had a lot of support.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for going on with us, Keefe, and helping us kind of understand the role of the Oklahoma Wheat Growers Association and the National Wheat Growers Association also, because it's a very important part of rural America and agriculture altogether.
Thank you.
We're taking a quick break so we can switch out headsets real quick, and while we do that, I want to remind you to jump over and hit the subscribe button where you get your podcasts. Now, if you want to learn more about what Keeff Felty was talking about, including links to the Oklahoma Association of Wheat Growers and the National Association of Wheat Growers, jump over to the redesigned reddirtagronomy.com. Now that everybody's set, we're diving back into the episode with a chat about growing crops in Garfield and Grant counties and what the Oklahoma Wheat Commission does for wheat growers across our state with RJ Parrish, which was recorded at the K&ID AgriFest on January 13th, 2024. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast.
So RJ, what are you doing with the Wheat Commission? I mean, what's your role with the commission?
Well, we oversee the marketing and develop the money. We spend money. We send money to the foundation. They send it down to OSU so we can have research and development of the markets. And we're members of the U.S. Wheat, which I get to go on a trip to Africa here pretty soon, the 1st of March.
Really?
I just returned from Africa in November on the wheat quality tour. We went over and told them how the quality of wheat was in the United States, and I gave a presentation of my operation over there while I was going through there. Went to Kenya, Nigeria, and Cape Town, South Africa.
What part of Kenya?
Nairobi.
Since you brought it up, and so I'm going to blame you, tell us a little bit about your operation and what you're doing up around the Billings area.
Well, right? I'm in the Hunter area. I married.
Okay.
That's how I got into farming. Married the farmer's daughter.
That's funny. I think it'd take that for most of us here. So
I raise probably about 2,000 acres. I have no-till operation. I raise half of it's in wheat every year, and the other half's in corn and soybeans. My wheat crop, I use a stripper header, so I plant soybeans into the stripper straw and raise that double crop.
How was this year's double crop?
I only got one because it was believe it or not, it was too wet at the time of planting, but it got dry. But my soybeans did all right. They averaged 20, 25.
Whenever it comes to being on the Wheat Commission, kind of tell folks what it is that you do for your counterparts around your Northwest Oklahoma.
Yeah, Northwest Oklahoma. Promote wheat, a quality of wheat we have. I think the better quality we have, if we can promote it and get other farmers to go on quality more than they yield, we'll be like the Mercedes-Benz of wheat around here. People be coming here to buy the wheat, and they'll pay a little bit more for the good quality wheat.
What made you want to be a part of the commission? I mean, what triggered that, I'm going to go forward and I'm going to be more involved in the Oklahoma Wheat Commission?
Well, the thing I've always said, if you can't change things unless you're involved. So the best way to change things is get involved with it, and whether you're on a board or whether you're just helping them out, researching things for them or providing guidance is a good deal. I've been on several boards. I was on the county committee board for the FSA, and I'm still on the rural water board, which I've been on there for 35 years. I think so.
What's been one of the greatest impacts that you've seen from the wheat checkoff dollars that have helped improve the Oklahoma wheat crop over your time?
Quality.
Yeah.
I think we have the best wheat breeder in the United States is Brett Carver.
Right.
And he's focused on quality and end-use products, and that's what we need to be focused as farmers, because if we don't give them what they want, they're not going to buy it.
This is a conversation I get in a lot. Imagine that is that, we're not paid for quality per se. That's the feedback. So how do you approach that conversation when a wheat farmer goes, I'm paid by the bushel, not the quality? So where do you start with that, especially somebody that may have their heels dug in? That
most of us old farmers our heels are dug in on things, right?
Yeah,
because most of the farmers
all things.
Yeah. Well, you just got to talk to them and try to make them understand that, it might not affect us tomorrow, but eventually we're going to get there. I think in a few years the wheat's going to change. It'll be more quality.
How much of your ability to travel and go to Africa and see some of this more wheat on the national and international stage, how has that helped you see the value of quality? Or did it change? Did you already know quality was important?
Well, when I was over in Africa, I got the feeling they want a little bit of quality, but they're more interested in feeding the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that price matters to them over there. Chad, I can't remember his last name, but he's in the office in U.S. Wheat down in Cape Town, and he tried to tell them that, Russian wheat and everything comes in a little bit wetter, and they ship it wetter, and ours, the United States, is a lot drier, and 1 point on a shipload's $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
So we tried to tell them that to figure that into the price, so they get more volume if they get the drier wheat.
That's interesting. Have you had any interactions with the countries that do value? Because we had on, I'm trying to remember who we were talking to, was that Keef or Mike, talking about quality mattering to some locations?
I think the Far East is more quality.
East. That was what it was.
Is what I've understood. I haven't had much dealings with up there, but I've been to couple board meetings up at the Portland at the Marketing Center, and they talk a lot about quality going over to Japan and China.
Whenever it comes to your traveling, do you talk to the folks in the mills in Kenya or in Central America, the end user, or do you talk to the whole chain?
We talk to the millers, millers and the people that work in the mills.
Right.
They come in and they understand, and we try to. This trip we didn't have much interaction with the ones in Kenya, but in Nairobi we got to meet with one, and he showed us the problems they're having with their wheat flour, and we even had them send some samples over here. So we had a researcher from Purdue, and she's going to go over and see what their problem was. Mm-hmm. Which it might be somebody else's wheat, but we can. Yeah, you help them. It kind of helps you into the market.
There is also the other side of that travel experience. They come to Oklahoma, and they get the opportunity to say, this field will, one way or another, will make it to our country, and we can actually see the grain as it's growing in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Like this time when I go to South Africa this time on trip, we're going to meet in the Durban Milling Conference. We're going to be at a milling conference, so we'll be able to talk and interact with the millers, which is the best way you find out the stuff that they want.
Right.
And I found out South Africa is more interested in our wheat than Nigeria is because of the price. And it's further to ship down there from the Red Sea area.
So you've talked a lot about the international markets and how much some of them value quality and marketing towards quality. Do you think that some of those international markets value quality a lot more than the domestic ones? Or?
No, I think domestic is more quality.
They really like that.
They really like. And I think I've heard about this new Aux-Wheat they have down at OSU. I think that's going to be a game changer too, because they'll be able to quit putting things into the wheat, in the bread, and the chemicals and stuff to make a stability. They can put wheat into it, and they could advertise it as all natural.
Yeah.
And I think the customers in here really respond to that.
Yeah.
You've been farming for more than a year or two. At what point did you see the transition? You start thinking about quality on your own farm, and what are some of the practices that you've put forward to make sure that your family farm is producing higher quality?
I always started out quality. I said quality product. I started out because what really started me is a junior 4-H and FFA wheat show. Mm-hmm. My kids were in it. We started finding out how things are, milling and quality and everything in the bread making. Dr. Anderson down there used to have some where they made loaves of bread and bring them to him. And you learn a little bit. And I quit putting my fertilizer on. I used to put anhydrous on. I haven't put anhydrous on in probably 25 years.
Wow.
There's one person, right? No, thanks, RJ.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's kind of more of a chemo. I thought anhydrous was dangerous and then started putting it on. I started finding out that I didn't have to use as much fertilizer to raise the same amount of crop. And then I switched over to no-till about 12 years ago, and I found that's even more. You get better utilization out of your fertilizers. And then I've started using some stabilizers when I put it on, which help. In fact, I'm old enough, I'm still thinking about buying a fertilizer spray. Put on my own.
No, and there's a lot of value in that. I see, that's why, especially once you go to no-till, I think if somebody converting to no-till, what's that first piece of equipment? Probably a sprayer so that you don't have to wait on the co-op. But then I think there's a lot of value to a larger system having a dry spreader, especially one that if you can even also do a little bit of custom work on the side, because there is opportunity. There's cost opportunity and there's time opportunity. If we start looking at dry fertilizer, P&K, and then urea price, depending on what that is. We had some guys last spring looking at the urea price versus liquid price. Well, they run sprayers, right?
Yeah.
So they want to put all their nitrogen out liquid, but urea was so cheap, they bought a lot of urea, and they actually turned it to aqueous urea because they had also free natural gas because they had wells on site and they had the system. But it's just so that they could run their own equipment.
I was back here looking, there's a spreader back here that Fairbanks has that they can put a row crop carriage on it. You can go in your corn, which I raise corn, which I think it'd be nice to come on and put fertilizer on after you got the crop growing, which, you go down the crop and it's high enough and then you can get 80 foot. And I think it won't burn your corn because liquid burns your corn. You can't put it on. You got to have it drops, which it's trouble there because sometimes they catch and rip things off. And,
I hear anybody talk about, corn and beans and stuff like that, and I get excited.
Now you can speak.
I'm in that.
You're allowed to talk now.
I'm allowed to talk now. The stripper header is one thing that people are very back and forth on. Either it's the best thing for double crop or it's the absolute worst thing for double crop. So why do you think it works for you? What do you see the value of it?
It's best because I don't have all that residue to go through. I can go through and plant with my air drill and put it on 15-inch rows versus using a planter and putting on 30 and have to spread that residue out of the way. And plus you have your stripper straw standing up and it kind of protects it from that hot, July and August until it, gets some good rains and it'll pop up. My double crops last year got above the straw, which is a lot of growth, but the dry spell in there, the beans didn't fill out as good as they should have.
Yeah. Like, have you always had that rotation? Have you always been a corn, soybean, and then half wheat? Is that just always been part of your?
It's been basically most of it. Sometimes I go wheat on wheat, depending on the farm. I got landlords, they like the wheat problem. So you got problems with that. I don't like going wheat on wheat because you start getting rye and you start getting Italian ryegrass and you start getting brome grasses back.
Is there ever anything that you do see on quality with that rotation? Because you do have some wheat on wheat and then some wheat after beans or wheat after corn.
Always, my wheat after corn is always the best wheat I have. You talk about scab on it, but I think we're dry enough that we don't have that problem. And the problem in soybeans is just a natural fit. I used to raise sorghum, but sorghum's a miner. It mines all the nutrients out of soil, and you got to put all them back in. And corn's more. It gets what's there, but you might still have left over. And if you have a dry year, one year I had a dry year and didn't have the corn crop wasn't nothing, but I didn't have to put fertilizer on, had 76 bushel crop.
Wow.
Next year on wheat.
To take advantage of quality, are you doing your own marketing? Are you storing? Because are you trying to take price advantage of a quality, which I'd assume you would try? But
I don't know. I just sell all my wheat as soon as it goes across the scale. And I found out that's the highest price every year almost.
You mean not a third, and third?
No.
I don't know where that would come from. Sorry, I didn't say that.
There's been lots of times I sold my wheat at harvest time and it dropped $2 next.
Yeah.
We're fortunate in Oklahoma because the market's usually at is higher before Kansas, if it can get sold before Kansas starts cutting.
Yeah.
How's your community, those feeding into where you're sending your grain? Do you as a community all look at higher quality? Because we have the conversations on the large scale. If there's only one good quality farmer and the rest are poor quality, then you have a basis issue. But if you can get everybody else up within the community that's delivering, now you might have some basis benefits, at least my understanding of that.
Well, our problem out there in our area is a lot of them started hauling big, they got the help and they start hauling Enid, and which hurts our local market quite a bit. But basically most of the farmers around our area are starting to there's most of them's no-till and most of them's putting fertilizer on There are very few anhydrous tanks. In fact, in our elevator, they took the anhydrous tanks out of there because they didn't sell enough to do it. The only place you got to go all the way to Lamont to get and haul it back and forth. Now I think there's only 2 farmers in our area that put anhydrous on anymore.
Yeah, so if you have anhydrous on that, not only it's a source, but now the co-op's paying for liability insurance. You have a whole lot of overhead to maintain that. If you don't have enough acres going out, then that's a cost that most co-ops can't eat.
And I think everybody's starting to get away from anhydrous. I think in our area, anyway, I think even up north in corn, you talk to people and they're putting urea on, and that's why the price stays with the corn. The price of fertilizer goes with the price of corn. It don't matter how much it costs to make it, I think.
So you're telling me that the hydrous family is moving away?
The hydrous family is moving away. Anhydrous.
Gone. And anhydrous?
Minus cattle country. I don't know if it'll ever disappear.
Your anhydrous is gone.
Yeah. She passed away several years ago, but yeah.
RJ, it's an old joke that has to come through.
It's a staple in our comedy.
It's at least 6 months since you've been your comedy.
So being part of the commission and being able to see sometimes those initial stages of research, peek behind the curtain, what are you most excited about that is maybe not out there yet, that maybe is right coming down the pipe that you've seen?
Well, that Aux-Wheat, it isn't out there, but we're gonna have to get the marketing where we can segregate that. So I think there's going to be an opportunity to get a premium on that Aux-Wheat if you raise it, if you can keep it segregated, maybe build your own grain bins to keep it in. And I talked to an ADM marketer down there and talked to him about this, and he says they'd be able to segregate it down here at Enid. So it's something you need to look at. Not everybody will be able to raise the Aux-Wheat because you get too much of it, then it's no good. But it's a good blending wheat to help other quality wheats get their stability up, and they don't have to put the chemicals in their wheat to make the stability right.
Tell us about the importance that the Oklahoma Wheat Commission puts on the research arm of it, because these guys here, Dr. Arnall and Dr. Arnell and Dr. Lofton, I mean, they rely on input from producers, but also that financial support to actually perform the research. Kind of explain why the research arm of all of that is important to the Oklahoma Wheat Commission.
Well, it's important because they're always coming up with new ideas. It's like right here, we fertilizer application and everything. Get your old drills out and start putting the urea in the ground.
Yeah,
things like that. That's research we provide for, and I wish we could do more of it. Wish we had the money to.
Yeah.
The last 2 years we've had bad crops, and that kind of affects our pocketbook.
Right.
And
we all wish you had more money, RJ. I mean, just statewide.
But I think this year we're going to have a bigger crop. And I think the biggest thing that's going to happen is if we get the new greenhouse down there at OSU built.
Well, and the weed science, just to kind of piggyback on top of that, the importance that weed eradication has really put on the researchers. They've heard from the Oklahoma wheat growers that we're having issues with weeds. We got to get on top of that. And there've been now, I guess there's 2 weed scientists that are now on campus.
Where I raise summer crops, soybeans and stuff, I try to kill all my weeds that I keep them in my wheat, kill those in the wheat field because I don't have nothing to deal with but grasses in the summertime.
Yeah.
And you save all that moisture. If you kill them before they start growing, you get them killed before you have all that moisture to raise soybeans.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Moisture.
And soybeans are a lot more drought tolerant than you give them credit for because you can put them in there, and if you can keep them alive till September and get some rain, they'll make a crop. Mm-hmm. And it's always good when they're $14, $15 a bushel.
That makes life better.
Thank you so much for going on with us, RJ, and talking about your operation, but then also what the Oklahoma Wheat Commission's doing for the Oklahoma wheat producer. Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is RedDirtAg. We'd like to thank Keeff Felty and RJ Parrish for joining us on the podcast, and the Oklahoma Wheat Commission for the amazing cinnamon rolls that day. I can still smell them. They were so good. If you get a chance, head over to the redesigned reddirtagronomy.com to find out more information about our guests and any of the resources that we discussed on this podcast or previous podcasts. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Brian Arnell, and John Weir, I am Dave Deacon. And we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media LLC 2024. And yes, all rights are reserved.